Welcome to the channel, guys. My name is Jess. So Bitcoin saw yet another retest and rejection from the 2025 downtrend just yesterday. And with continued rejections from the resistance, it's time to take a look at the charts and try to answer the question, is it more likely that Bitcoin sees a breakdown? We're going to dive into the short time frame and high time frame price action today to talk about what the most likely price action following is going to be and what that means on the high time frame if we do see that breakdown. Before we jump in, make sure you guys smash that like button and subscribe to the channel to get regular Bitcoin analysis every Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. And sign up to my free Telegram for more regular Bitcoin updates. If you're a trader and you're interested in my VIP channel, be sure to message me down below on Telegram. VIP gives you exclusive access to my personal trades with exact entry points, targets, and stop losses. Alright, so jumping into our daily chart for a little bit of broader context before we dive into our short time frame analysis, we can see here that throughout the entirety of 2025, Bitcoin has and still continues to travel in a pretty major downtrend over here, right? Ever since tapping $110,000 all the way back here in the 15th or the middle of January, we saw the tumble downwards, falling below this massive level of support at 91,000. And ever since, we have been really struggling to reclaim these lower levels of resistance from 76,000 ranging up to our current resistance at $88,000, right? And also seeing continued rejections from that 2025 downtrend. So if we take a look at our most recent daily candle close as well, we can see that we had a really aggressive rejection from this horizontal resistance here at 88,000, resulting in a pretty bearish candle. We've got a huge wick to the upside with the close being very bearish as well, right? Just nearly engulfing the prior day's green candle and moving back down to our current level of support at 81,000. So as we said in the start of the video, with continued rejections from that level of resistance and retest of support, it's really time to evaluate what the real probability is of holding that level of support and preventing a Bitcoin breakdown, so a tumble into these lower levels. Keeping in mind, guys, we also have economic data coming out tonight, so that's at 10:30 for those of us in Australia, and that's in about 14 hours. So non-farm payrolls is coming out tonight, and our current forecast is sitting at $100,000 in new jobs, and the consensus is sitting at 135. So both those are a drop in comparison to last month's 151,000. So that'll be pretty interesting to see how that plays out. But generally, if non-farm payrolls is lower than consensus, or like just generally very low, it does signal economic downturn and a potential shift towards rate cuts, right? So that is pretty important coming up and could cause some short-term volatility in the price action. If it ends up being really, I guess, down, really negative, and we see, what we saw in, December or November last year when NFP was so low and 4-week jobless claims was really high, and we saw a little boost where the Fed decided to cut rates earlier than expected as a sort of prevention against further economic downturn and a really poor job market. So unless that really happens, it's quite unlikely that there will be like super long-term effects in the price action from just this piece of economic data, but still something to definitely look out for in the next 24 hours in terms of trading as well. So let's dive into the short time frame price action on Bitcoin and talk about the probability of us seeing either a breakout from the 2025 downtrend for real here, a move above 88,000 and into 91,000, or otherwise a breakdown from 81k support towards 76, and what those high time frame bearish consequences would be. So taking a look at the 4-hour chart overall, guys, the price action is not looking all that good, right? So with continued retest of support, what we don't want to see is decreasing buying pressure, right? If anything, at support, it would be better if we were printing these higher highs at the very least, showing us that, as we bounce on support, we're seeing consistent sort of build up in buying pressure. And if we saw a similar sort of pattern in momentum as well, that would be a little bit more bullish than what we're seeing right now, potentially showing us a bullish sort of period of consolidation as opposed to something that's going to lead to a breakdown. So with that, let's take a look at the momentum and the price action that's happening here. So at the start of this sort of consolidation here, when we were retesting 81,000 as support that first time, this is where RSI was sitting. We were sitting at around 39.19. And then following that, subsequently, With every single move upwards and retest of these sort of higher levels of resistance, we had a build up in momentum, right? Buying pressure was increasing, selling pressure was decreasing. We had an uptrend in momentum as we approach resistance. Now, if we take a look at the most recent 2 retests of our support over here, we can see that despite the fact that we've had a little sort of decrease in selling pressure, right? Selling pressure is diminishing. We're seeing high highs on the RSI. The overarching momentum is still actually negative. We're seeing a lower retest of resistance on the price action, and we're seeing lower highs on the RSI as well. So essentially, while we've got a really small instance of bullish divergence here, right, with the higher highs here in the RSI, it isn't meaningful at all. All it's essentially told us here, if you were to trade that, was that we weren't going to break down from 81k in this particular instance. But that push upwards here still wasn't enough to signal an increase in buying pressure overall as we travel within this horizontal channel, right? So the overall buying pressure that we're experiencing at this level of support is diminishing, right? And the only reason why we're not breaking down is because the selling pressure in this instance was not greater than it was at this point in time as well, right? So the overarching trend here in terms of momentum as we move sideways is not looking all that good. And we can argue that because we're moving into the NFP data and a big bout of economic news, that could cause, you know, a decrease in volatility and sort of compression in the momentum, which is totally normal. But it's still not really something that we want to see moving against such a critical level of support. So the likely scenario that we're looking at here on the short time frame is more likely than not going to be a breakdown of $81,000. That is what the charts are showing us. We're not looking strong as we move along this level of support. Now, that is our analysis of the price action as it currently stands, right? Based off these 2 data points that we have over here and these lower data points over here. Now, this piece of analysis, just like any analysis, has the potential to be invalidated. So, for example, if Bitcoin continues to travel along this sort of RSI uptrend that we seem to be developing over here, and we consistently form higher lows moving into this level of resistance once again, pushing above this high here at 88.5, and we see a breakout, a close above the top of this resistance at 88.81, that is naturally going to invalidate the fact that we are traveling in a short time frame bearish consolidation over here, right? And that would also mean that on the daily time frame, hopefully, we would have closed a candle above the 2025 downtrend, what we failed to do in this recent daily candle close over there, right? Where we wicked above, but the actual close itself resulted in a rejection from the downtrend. And so that then would trigger a move up to the next level of resistance. We have a little volume gap over here as well, right? Taking us right into around $92,000, this next level of resistance, and potentially pushing Bitcoin back up into a previous macro range of consolidation, right? Between November and February, right? Sitting all the way up at 105 with a level of resistance at $99,000 as well. Now, moving into the weekly chart, let's talk about the high time frame consequences of, I guess, the more likely short time frame scenario right now, right? The breakdown from 81,000 and a movement towards the next level of support between $78,000 and $76,500. So in that move, what we would see here on a weekly time frame is a breakdown from the current weekly range, right? It starts at $80,000, right? This close, 80,500, and then it ranges up to the close for the range high, right? So the 86k resistance that we have here on the weekly time frame. So if we manage to see a breakdown on the short time frame that takes us down to around $76,000, what that would mean is that we've broken down from the weekly range, which is obviously bearish, resulting in probably a continuation here into the sort of next lower level support starting at 74,000. We have this level over there, and then ranging down to, if you guys look at the end of that volume gap, around $73,000 over here, right? So the next base of support on the high time frame. Now, what we would also do then in that next leg downwards is move on to retest the 50 EMA on the weekly time frame. And that is really, really important. And that is where the price action becomes really critical on a high time frame, because historically, falling below the 50 EMA, we generally enter a high time frame bearish trajectory, right? If we take a look over here, we did end up bouncing on the Gaussian channel on the weekly time frame here, resulting in a secondary rally, alongside some other confirmation factors on smaller time frames, which we'll go over in a second. But over here, breaking down from the 50 EMA, we saw a high time frame movement into a bear market, going as low as 16,000, and then recovering back above the 50 EMA over here, we started seeing accumulation behavior. Once again, we bounced on the 50 EMA at 54k, resulting in this rally, the breakout of a massive descending channel structure over here, and a rally all the way up to $109,000. So it is clearly a really significant high time frame indicator. So if we go on to see that retest and we break down from the 50 EMA, that is a big red flag for, the potential high time frame bearish trajectory for Bitcoin. Now, if we pull up the Gaussian channel, we can see here, right, historically in that sort of secondary rally, that is exactly where we bounced on the Gaussian channel on the weekly time frame. Now, if we take a look at where the Gaussian channel sits over here on the weekly time frame, we can see they are just very close to overlapping. So potentially what we could see on the short time frame is a breakdown, a tap of the 50 EMA and the Gaussian channel. And if we do not break down from those levels, we could then finally see a bounce and maybe a reversal, similar to what we saw over here when those levels started to overlap once again. But that is a really big if, right? And as we stand right now with the short time frame price action and trajectory being bearish, the charts are looking quite concerning. Now, what we're also looking out for on the weekly time frame is our RSI. So across the entirety of accumulation here, ever since we broke above the 50 EMA over here at around $25,000, RSI has remained above 44.41. That is the baseline for bullish momentum across the entirety of the bull market so far, or the accumulation phase, whatever you guys want to call it. And if we break below 44.41 on the RSI, in this next sort of short time frame move downwards, it is a really big red flag. So RSI momentum in general is a leading indicator, right? So it tells us before the price action happens what is generally more likely. And so if we see an RSI breakdown before we see these sort of levels retested, it's more likely then in that scenario that we see a breakdown from the 50 EMA and the Gaussian channel as opposed to a bounce, right? Which is what we saw over here when we tapped it and we bounced. That was that sort of exact sort of moment in time. Now, at the same time that we have our next weekly candle close in 3 days and 1 hour, we'll also have the next 3-day candle close. And that is where we're going to look for even more confirmation of what is going on in the price action and whether or not the short time frame breakdown has led to high time frame consequences. So this next 3-day candle close is going to happen in 58 minutes, so an hour, but the one following that is the one that I'm talking about. So on the 3-day chart, if we pull up the Gaussian channel once again, we can see that historically rejection from the midline of the Gaussian channel and then a breakdown after that of the Gaussian channel generally results in a high time frame descent, right? So that is more confirmation of the entry or the start of a bear market for Bitcoin, as opposed to, a retest and I guess establishment of support of the midline, and over here where it led to a subsequent rally, right, back up to the second all-time high for this sort of bull market here at $69,000. So if we take a look at our current price action, we can see the Gaussian channel is being retested, the midline of the Gaussian channel. We're currently, so far, have been seeing consistent rejections of the midline of the Gaussian channel. And so following that, if we then go on to see a breakdown of the Gaussian channel as well, that is going to be sort of a big, big red flag, right? And more confirmation that Bitcoin is very likely entering a bear market. So when that 3-day close happens, the 3-day close and the weekly close happens, if we manage to stay above the 50 EMA and the Gaussian channel on the weekly chart, and we are also bouncing off the base of the Gaussian channel here on the 3-day time frame as well, that is a very, very good sign that we are very likely to also see a bounce from Bitcoin, right? That we are bottoming out at those levels of dynamic support. Where conversely though, If we also see a breakdown of the Gaussian channel here on the 3-day time frame after consistent rejections from the midline, it is even more confirmation that Bitcoin is entering what could potentially become a very high time frame bearish trajectory. Alrighty guys, that is a wrap on the analysis today. Thank you for tuning in for another episode. If you guys liked the video or you learned something, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel to get regular Bitcoin analysis every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. And join my free Telegram channel for more regular updates. If you're a trader and you're interested in my VIP channel, don't forget to contact me on Telegram for more details. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye!